But like I found with this generation, man, they like there needs to be a sense of action that leads to, and that's proof positive of spiritual transformation. It's kind of like the woman at the well thing, you know what I mean? Like she has this encounter with Jesus, and then immediately she goes back to Decapolis, the 10 cities that she knew people in, and she starts sharing. There's action after encounter. So the way I've seen that happen is like students leaving services and going, I'm gonna begin to anoint my house with oil. Students leaving service and going, I have prayers I just wrote down over my mom and dad, my brother and my sister. I have a friend. I wrote up a text. I'm gonna send as soon as service is over. I'm recording my testimony. I'm posting it live. It's happening tomorrow. Just decisions after encounter, action after encounter.
Hey everyone, welcome to Vitals for Youth Ministry podcast from Lead the Generation. So glad to be with you today. My name is Aaron, Director of Lead the Generation. I got Caleb Leak with me in the studio.
Ooh, heck yeah, feeling good on a Monday or whenever you're watching. I hope it's a great day.
It's a Monday for us, but we're glad that you're joining us today. Hey, we got an incredible guest today, Caleb. Peter Reeves is here with us. One of my favorite humans in the world, right here. Here he is. Yeah.
That's I said it. You've never said that for any other guest.
I feel like I say that for every guest. I don't. I'm sorry, Peter. This is really true. I guess the Bible says that like out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks.
Boom,
so,
don't stop. Keep it coming.
Keep it coming. Let's go. Peter, man, just real quick before we jump in, for people that may not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, your wife, your kids. Just some of the real basics, just so people can get to know a little bit about who you are.
Man, I have the most amazing wife in the world. Been married for 10 years.
Whoa, let's go.
We have two little ones, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old that God gave to us that we're ready to give back at any time. That's crazy. No, but man, I am an evangelist and a teaching pastor. I'm based here in Orlando, Florida, at Faith Assembly. So Faith Assembly Church out here, and love it, love what I do, and just thankful to be on the pod, man. This is awesome.
Heck yeah, bro. Excited to have you. And something we love having, youth pastors on, youth evangelists on, is because everybody in youth ministry has that story. It's like impossible to be around middle school, high schoolers and it not even reflect on you, because sometimes it's like not even the middle schoolers, high schoolers, students stupid, but it's like youth pastors just being an absolute idiot. And so I would love to hear your story. Like, what is your youth ministry story that you would share at the dinner table to one up every other youth pastor of like, this is how bad it got?
Definitely was that youth ministry that was trying to attract kids by doing crazy things. And so, youth ministry 8-10 years ago, we're like, yo, if we're going to have a bomb youth night, we need a car smash. Yeah. So for weeks on end, I'm trying to get a car. Like I'm calling different junkyards. I'm calling people in the church. We need a car. Because this is how we're going to get 1,000 kids in the room. We're going to smash a car. And so one of my students hits me up and he's like, yo, I got like a car that you guys can smash. Like it's going to be fine. And this car, if I can get it to start, I'll bring it. It's going to be awesome. So I'm like, all right, sweet, man. Like bring the car by. I have a couple of my intern guys check it out. They're like, this is going to be incredible.
Okay, wait. So does the lead pastor know about this? Is he like, yeah, we're on board?
He's good.
Okay.
Like,
wow. Good for you.
Find the car, man. Like, let's do it.
You're in the 1% right there.
I sent it in an email, and I'm like, if he reads it, great. If he doesn't, I send the email. So the kid brings a car. We smash the car. We make like good money on it. Like the kids pay $1 to do it. All of that. At the end of the night, we're cleaning up the glass and everything. And guy pulls up to the church and he's like, yo, I'm looking for Peter. I'm like, I'm Peter, right? Dude comes in and he's like, man, I need to talk to someone. He goes, my son was here tonight and he said that you guys had a car smash and he provided the car. And I go, yeah. And he goes, I don't know where he got that car from. And so I'm like, well, let me show you the car. Like, I will show you the car. So we walk over to the location where the car is. And I'm like, man, be careful, whatever. And he goes, that's my car.
No. No way. Dude, when you started that, I was like, there's no way it goes here.
I learned that when you get one of those car smashes, you got to look at the title. You got to look where it came from. I didn't even think. I was so happy we got the car. Me and the interns before the kids got there, we're like, bang! We're like beating this dude's car up. We're smashing the glass. We're recording videos. I still, I'm only 5'7", so I got on the hood of that car. I'm like, I'm just beating it. And he goes, "That's my car." Like, I'm like your everyday driver. He's like, "That is my car." And so that was a long conversation with my lead and the police. Yes, I said the police.
Yeah.
And because technically that is vandalism, friends. It's Grand Theft Auto and vandalism on church property. You catch the vibes.
So what did the kid say? Were you like, why did you bring your dad's car?
You want to go there? He
Yeah.
was mad at his dad.
No.
So he was like, "You can have this car." He goes, "I didn't know, like, when you said smash, y'all were going to smash." I said, "What do you think that means? Car smash, brother." Like, what did you think was going to happen? He's like, "Well, So, we had 7 kids get saved that night. I'll tell
Come
you
on.
that. It's for the kingdom.
Is that what you told the dad too? You're like, "Hey, listen, I know you're mad, but we had 7 kids get saved." So like,
That's what I told them. That's what I told the board when they were like, "How could you be so dumb?" I was like, "We had 7 kids get saved."
That's all that matters.
at any cost.
It doesn't matter. We're going to get sued for vandalism or I'm going to go to jail.
And now we need 993 more before we get to our 1,000.
Oh
Yeah, bro.
man.
Crazy moment.
So wait,
if you
what's
ever
the
do a car
res-
smash, check it out. Check out all the details.
Yeah. A few questions. Hey, buddy, where did you get this car? Is probably top of my list now.
Is it stolen?
Yeah, this
I'm
is
gonna
not
try to
your
find the
family's
video
car.
and send it to you guys. Like, I look so
Oh.
happy smashing the windows of this car, and it's someone's everyday drive.
It'd be
Yeah,
so
like,
good to put
someone's
that in the show
everyday
notes.
drive.
If
I
we
look
could put
so
that in the
happy.
show
I'm like,
notes. Oh my
I had to
gosh.
take the video down from YouTube because the guy was so bad. Like,
Yeah.
anyway.
What happened with the dad? What happened?
Well, needless to say, that's one of the fastest ways to get someone to leave your church.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
bro.
bro.
What made it so much worse is like I was proud to show him what happened. I was like, "Oh, the car's this way," like. Well, you should have saw his face, man.
Oh,
Like,
man.
literally. And I had another person with me. Thank God. Who knows what's gonna happen?
Wow.
I don't even know why I'm surprised at this story. I expected nothing less than the best from Peter Reeves. Like this is,
Dude,
come on.
like such a big fail. You know what I mean?
And you
Like,
kept your job though. You stayed youth pastor.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, bro.
Somehow.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
like,
Does this-
I'm gonna continue to be a part of this community. Whether you guys keep hearing about.
Hey Peter, when they run background checks, does this show up on your record now?
It's just not. He didn't press charges or anything like that. He left.
Okay.
And our team took care of him. I don't know what they did. I was like, I think I need to remove myself from the situation.
Oh,
You know when
man.
you're desperate though to pull off an event, you're like, what are we gonna do? And when the kid was like, when he offered the car, I thought this
Oh, yeah.
11th grader was trustworthy. You know what I mean?
Famous last words. I thought an 11th grader was trustworthy.
Well, in that moment of getting the car, it's like we can actually do this. Like I would feel the exact same way.
The only thing that would make this story better, this isn't true, but I'm like, and now today he's a mechanic. You know?
Yeah. Oh man, dude, that is
He
amazing.
sells cars for a living, people. I'm telling you.
We played a part in that.
Oh, come
He
on.
crashed cars and now he builds them. Look at what God can do.
Oh my gosh.
I love it.
Oh,
I
no.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Never
So,
fails.
fail.
Never fails. Every youth
Yeah.
pastor has a story.
Yeah, they do.
Every youth pastor
That's
has
the first
a story.
though. The car
That's
vandalism
the first. That's as soon as you said car smash, I was like, oh, I like where this is going.
Yes,
And then when you said a
yes.
student help me out, I just thought, oh, this is okay. This is gonna be good.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is why
Yeah.
Peter Reeves is on the podcast today. Let's go.
Heck yeah.
Excited.
All right. So, Peter, we call this podcast Vitals for Youth Ministry because there's 5 vitals you find in Acts chapter 2 that are needed for discipleship. And so for those of you that are watching on YouTube, you're listening on a podcast platform, and you don't know what Vitals for Youth Ministry is, it's an incredible resource provided by Lead the Generation. It's absolutely free, about 70 plus training videos, and it's all based around the framework of 5 vitals you find in Acts chapter 2. You can use it to train yourself, sharpen yourself, train your leaders. Caleb, you use it to train all your volunteer leaders in your youth ministry. And so 5 vitals: biblical truth, spiritual transformation, healthy community, missional living, leadership development, right? You find all of them in Acts 2 and then throughout the rest of the book. So, Peter, we wanted to take a deep dive with you on the vital of spiritual transformation. Just kind of recognizing how God has used you not only in the days when you were youth pastor, but even now as a staff evangelist out of faith, and the traveling that you do and speaking to a lot of young people still, thousands of young people, tens of thousands of young people every year. Let's just take a deep dive on that topic of vital spiritual transformation. How do you use, things like smashing cars in order to get 7 kids saved, all the good stuff. So anyways, Peter, when I say the 5 vitals and then we dive in on spiritual transformation, think back to like not only your youth pastor days, but also how God's using you in ministry now, you and your wife. What are some of the big points that you would kind of draw our attention to related to spiritual transformation? You got full-time vocational youth pastors listening. You got part-time bivocational volunteer youth leaders, small churches, large churches. You kind of got the whole gamut of the youth ministry world paying attention to our conversation. What are some ways you would coach us as leaders when it comes to how we create incredible moments of spiritual transformation?
Yeah, if I could, I just want to start with my experience and a story. When I think of spiritual transformation, I think about a particular young lady in my youth ministry, and she was a youth pastor's dream in that, like, she was serving not just on Wednesday night, which is when we had service, but she was involved in church. She was our number one giver. She brought her friends weekly. She was a role model to all the younger students. I mean, a youth pastor's dream in that regards. We all dream of having that one student. This young lady was that for me and my wife, and she was tremendous. And if you would have asked me her graduating year, if you would have asked me, what do I think about her leadership in her life? I'm like, this girl's going to change the world. She might be the next Billy Graham, the next Christine Kane, the next something, you know what I mean? And so what happened with her, though, is she went to college. So this is just, I've been in Orlando for 3 years. So 3 years ago, she went to college, and I got a call from her one day, and she said, hey, Pastor Peter, I want to let you know that I unfollowed you on Instagram, and like I unfriended you so that you can't follow me. And I said, well, why? Like I said, what happened? Is it something I post? Is this something that happened? She said, no. She said, I've decided to walk away from Jesus, and I'm embarrassed, and I don't want you to see my life. And I said, well, whoa, let's talk about this. What happened? And she said, well, she goes, I've been at school. I've been presented with a bunch of different options. It's been really difficult for me to live in Jesus when I'm at university and I don't have like community around me. And she said, like, yeah, like I've given up on God, and I feel like he's given up on me. And I was shocked, okay, because everyone thinks they're a good youth pastor. You actually don't know until you're done, 3, 4, 5 years later. That will tell you if you're a good youth pastor. Not the kids that are in the room in the moment, but the ones that are still in the room when you're gone and when, they're out of youth ministry. Anyway, I began to like recap, like, man, what happened? I thought I taught her how to walk out her faith and to live in Christ, right? Jesus said, abide in me abide in me as I'm with you, and you'll bear much fruit, right? Like, it's great. We know this. So I, again, this young lady, life transformed, by the way, before she became that model student. She came into our youth ministry lukewarm, got involved in small groups, got connected to like our giving methods, got connected to our development, student development and leadership development, became a student leader. I mean, just saw her life completely transformed, brought her mom and dad to church. I mean, literally, you talk about spiritual transformation, this young lady was it. And now she's telling me, like, I'm no longer a follower of Jesus. So when I began to do the deep dive into the past, I realized that there was a gap in spiritual transformation in our youth ministry. And I can't fix it now because I'm already done. They have a new youth pastor, a way better youth pastor. But if I could say it to someone who's in my shoes, I want to say it like this. There is a way to lead people into spiritual transformation, and it's exactly what Jesus said. No shocker there. Matthew 16:24. Here's what it says. It says, then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple. Are you ready? Here's this part of spiritual transformation. Here's where it comes into play. If anybody wants to be my disciple, they must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. So here's the gap with that one student. Here's what I did. I taught her that she could she could take up her cross and that she could follow Jesus. I just forgot to teach her that first it starts with denying yourself. I didn't teach her about the deny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not cool to teach kids about the deny. You
True.
don't want to teach them like, hey, like Jesus said, unless a grain of seed, a wheat falls to the ground and dies, it'll bear much fruit. That's not encouraging. No one's like, yeah, I'm getting ready to die, There's only one person in the Bible that was hype about dying, and even they doubted at the end. It was Thomas. Thomas is like, let's go die with Jesus. And he's like, listen, unless I touch the holes in his hand, right? Like that's not a cool thing to talk to people about. But spiritual transformation is exactly that. First, you got to teach students to deny themselves, and in denying themselves, then they can take up their cross, which is then they can understand who Jesus is, how to know God and make him known, and then they can follow him and become like him. That to me is spiritual transformation. And so I created environments where people could learn about God. I created environments where we taught kids how to talk about God, but I never taught them. Probably the hardest battle, and we know this as ministers, is going to be you have to deny yourself.
Yeah.
You got to do it.
Yep.
It's difficult.
Yep.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
But that's spiritual transformation. I know someone is spiritually transformed when what they want is not always their guiding factor. When there's a clear separation between their desires and the voice of God, right? And they go, no, this is what I want, but this is what God said. So that's what I would say. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, that's good. And it's, as a current youth pastor, it not only is it challenging, but also I think the other side is like, kids and students don't always respond well to that kind of message, and that is hard as a youth pastor because I want students in the room and I want students to be taking those steps, but I'm also like I wrestle with the tension of, oh my gosh, am I going to really say something that's going to either push them to a place where they're like, I'm done, but at the same time, is that also like what I should be doing? Because that's kind of what Jesus was doing. Of like, he's not here to build a big crowd, but he is there to build people who are truly following.
It flies in the face of so much. I mean, it flies in the face of current culture because current culture is all about, go get your bag, live your best life. All about like affirming yourself, right? But it also flies in the face of the model youth ministry that most of us have been taught, which is I want to do everything I can to attract you to come and to get you to keep coming back and keep you and keep you here.
Facts.
Right. So whatever I have to do, however many cars I have to steal to smash, then that's what you, sorry, Peter, that was for you. That's what you do because I think what the model taught us, and I did this as a youth pastor for years. The model taught me if I can get you to come back week in, week out, eventually spiritual transformation will take place.
Yeah.
But Peter, you're looking at it and saying, not necessarily. Right?
Yeah, not necessarily. And I don't think spiritual transformation can happen without a challenge. So I'm glad we're talking about the attractional model, but I heard Rick Warren say one time, he said, if you don't ask people to commit or to challenge them, they'll never change. Commitment and challenge leads to change. And even when I look at my own life, I grew up in the church, but I really gave my life to the Lord when I was 14, right? And I sat down with my youth pastor and I was like, okay, I want to follow Jesus. And he taught me two things. It's still a prayer I pray today. He said, Pete, number one, God is your source. You got to remember that God is everything good in your life flows from God. Everything else is a resource, but you have a source. And then he said, and then your second job is to everyday surrender. So exactly what I'm saying right now, right? You got to surrender. You got to deny yourself. He said, Pete, those are the two things that will keep you grounded in seeking God. And then he taught us our student leadership process at that time was this whole thing called More Like Jesus. Every day I'm just trying to become more like Jesus. I would argue those things are so pivotal for me, for my spiritual transformation. And in that More Like Jesus time, all we did was go through spiritual disciplines, right? He was big on the fact, and I'm still big on the fact that Jesus calls us disciples. Well, the core of a disciple is discipline, right? And being disciplined in what you're doing. And so those are the things, though, that lead to spiritual transformation is being able to have this routine or this rhythm and being able to have these disciplines in your life that shape you. That's how I got spiritually transformed, man. And I've seen it in the students that I know that are still following Jesus, even without me saying it, and I feel like this is the grace of the Holy Spirit. When I talk to them about how they're still holding on, it's this ability to deny themselves that keeps them going, yeah, that didn't feel good, but I know God loves me. Yeah, that happened to me, but I know God's still on my side. They're able to deny what they feel to continue to pursue Jesus.
Okay, so I'm curious because you interact with lots of different youth pastors, lots of different youth students. What would you say is the biggest struggle this current generation is facing as far as what they need to deny themselves of or die to That's where I keep going to. I have my own
sure
thoughts,
you
but
wanna go here?
I would love to go here. Because I think it's one of those things of like we have to know the enemy, and I would like before we actually start to attack it and be pointed
Yes,
towards it.
that's my game plan.
And so
Here's
yeah,
what
I'd
we're
love to
up
hear your
against.
thoughts.
Yeah, here's what I think we're up against. In my humble opinion, is we need to teach students how to die to their dreams. You know, because that's why I said, are you sure you want to go here? Because the message that is so easy to preach to this generation is God's going to give you a dream. There's an MLK on the inside of you. Know, come on, you got a dream. And it's like, here's the deal is if you don't learn how to be submitted in the presence of God, you will, instead of receiving what God has said, will bring things and convince yourself that he said them and then be mad when he doesn't bless them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before you can be a dreamer, you need to be able to be a follower. You know what I mean? Like, and I just feel like this generation, we told them that anything is possible, which in the kingdom of God it is. I mean, God can do absolutely anything, but we haven't taught them how to be surrendered and submitted. And so we've called them to create and called them to become and called them to evolve and called them to innovate when we haven't taught them how to submit and to surrender. Let me just say this, even just following the model of Jesus himself, 30 years of obscurity for 3 years of public ministry. There was a time of deep development of going, and Jesus had the ability to communicate. We know when he was 12, remember when his mom and his dad lost him? Like they lost, like Mary lost God, you know what I mean? Like, and Jesus was in the temple debating with these scribes and these Pharisees. And it's like, he had the ability to communicate, but still there was this time of going, no, you're going to be submitted. And obviously he was submitted to his heavenly father, but even then Jesus was submitted to his earthly father, Joseph, which is a different message for a different day. But I just think that we got to teach students like, hey, you don't have to start dreaming world-changing things at 15. Like, is it bad? No. But first learn how to follow Jesus.
Yeah. Okay. So
learn how to deny.
So devil's advocate is like, dreams are obviously a great thing. So it's like, you're telling them not to have any dreams, Peter, like, come on.
No,
So
I'm not saying it.
But it's not just no dreams. It's submitted under God's plan for your life first.
Correct.
And recognizing maybe, I would say as a youth pastor, here's what I see is like, maybe you might be clutching on to things that you didn't ask God about what he thinks about it first.
Right.
And so now you're so attached to something that when it doesn't become that, it's like incredibly disappointing or frustrating when it's like, you've latched on to something before asking God what he has for you.
I think the root, at the root level, a lot of what you're talking about, Peter, is like the dreams. I get hung up on my dreams because it's about what I'm going to become or what I'm going to do. And what I hear you saying is spiritual transformation at the root level is who I become as a person, not who I become positionally, who I become, in like my job, my career, my vocation, but it's like, no, this is who I am as a person. And you're referencing the life of Jesus there. I just preached this at an event I was at recently. In Matthew 3, Jesus gets baptized. And that voice of the Heavenly Father, this is my son in whom I am well pleased. Jesus has not done one miracle at this point. He's not preached one sermon. He's not recruited one disciple yet. God is already saying to him, I'm already well pleased with you. Right. And so it's a statement of Jesus' identity at this moment. And I'm pleased with who you are as a person, not what you're going to do or what you've done, which, like in the context of the event, I was sharing this out. I said to them, healthy ministry flows out of affirmation we've already received from our Heavenly Father, not for the affirmation we receive by doing ministry or by doing it well. But we've unintentionally taught that to students when we preach, go get your dream, go live your best life, go after it.
Wow.
We've preached to them, you're going to do something great. And so that becomes their focus as opposed to the focus of, I got to go deep in my roots, and I got to let spiritual transformation take deep place in my life and who I am as a person.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Is it all identity then? Is that all the root issue, or is it?
I mean, I think you can use that word. There's probably other ways you can frame it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and just case study, like I'm thinking about what we're going to talk about today, spiritual transformation. I couldn't help but like reflect on like Zacchaeus, right? We know this story in the Bible. Zacchaeus is a tax collector. He's the guy, we teach this in Sunday school. He was a wee little man, I'm 5'7", so he's
Me too. I'm 5'8", bro.
he's like
you guys both love that story of Zacchaeus right there.
Yeah, like I'm a giant compared to, I'm Kevin Durant compared to Zacchaeus. So I think about that story, and the spiritual transformation in his life is kind of swift. Like Jesus sees him and goes, "Hey, I'm coming to your house today." And when his first conversation with Jesus, he's like, "Listen, I'm gonna give back everything I took, and I'm gonna give back even more." You know what I mean?
Right.
And so his natural desire, right? This guy's, we know the narrative of tax collectors is these dudes are greedy. They want more. So the first thing that really happens in his connection with Christ is he goes, "I'm going against my own desire. I'm dying to what was previously the number one priority in my life."
Right.
And we don't know the
Right.
rest of Zacchaeus' story, but we see that transformation, even with Paul, right? Road to Damascus, spiritual transformation. He hears from God, which I would argue that's a big part of spiritual transformation, and was my number one focus as a youth pastor, is like, how can I get students to hear the voice of God?
Yeah.
Right.
And, how can I get them to lean into that? Anyway, Paul, the first thing he does is like, he goes and prays until someone comes and lays hands on his eyes and he can see. And then he just starts going to work, doing the exact opposite of what his desires naturally drove him to.
Right.
And so I just think that that's a big way to identify spiritual transformation, is to look at someone and go, wait a minute, what you previously were after, you're no longer chasing. I think that's what Jesus was talking about. He goes, you have to be able to deny yourself, like the things that were so high on your priority list. It's not you just kick them to the side, in some regards, but you're going, that's not the number one focus of my life anymore. It's not. And spiritual transformation is ongoing, right? Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories in the Bible right now is the story about Jesus and the disciples walking outside of the temple. I think it's in Matthew 24. And it says that the disciples looked at the temple architecture and they were impressed. And the Lord just spoke to me like these guys have been with Jesus, right? They saw him do unbelievable things, right? Like crazy things, walk on water, raise the dead, multiply meals, all these things. And they walk out and they're like, wow, that's impressive. They found something else to be more impressed with than Jesus in a moment. They were in the presence of God and found something else to be impressed with. And I just think to myself, like, their spiritual transformation was still happening. Right? Like they still didn't know. Like Jesus, like, you're impressed by the sheer size of this? It's gonna all turn into a pile of rubble. They're like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? They still didn't understand or perceive. So it's happening and is happening. And I think there's a lot of contributing factors to spiritual transformation though. So, but yeah, that's how I was thinking about it. I'm like, man, how can we look at people and go, man, we know that they're spiritually transformed? I think it starts with their desire.
Yeah. Okay. I don't even know how I'm going to ask this question. So give me grace as I fumble through this. All right. So that's my setup.
We believe in you.
Yeah. Okay. So like, how do I know when somebody's on the journey and started the journey of spiritual transformation, and I just need to show them grace because they're still in the process, or I need to recognize my approach is not working and actually they're not even started? Does that make sense what I'm saying? Because I don't want to get to the end of this and I'm 5 years in. I don't want to get to the end of my first class and be like, oh my gosh, they went away and they hadn't even started that process of spiritual transformation. Because sometimes it's easy to look at my students and I can always be displeased if like they're never meeting the mark of what my bar is as a youth pastor of like being transformed enough or whatever. But part of that is just the grace and long game of youth ministry that I need to live in. Is my question making any sense?
No, you're asking like, what's the fruit or what are the markers?
Yeah, how do I know like this is happening and I'm seeing parts of this? Right. And maybe that's too broad.
Not perfection, but growth.
Yeah.
And what are the markers or the fruit of growth? Like, Peter, I'll let you go first, and then I'll throw maybe a thought or two in.
Yeah, I think the markers, right? It is tough to say that because I'm thinking like it's more artist than it is factory. If you know what I mean by that.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that I used to try to do, and I used to try to have our leaders do with our students, is I would ask them frequently, especially in small groups, tell me about your faith. Like, explain to me what do you believe, right? And try to get them to. This is what I would say. Like, I really focused on trying to get students to articulate what they think and what they believe about God. And as their leader, then I was able to kind of sit with it and go, man, is that what the scriptures say? Is that what Jesus has called them to? I also, if you were trying to move more towards like a factory model, like, are they being spiritually transformed? I definitely jacked the old campus missionary thing that we used to say like back in the day, like the pray, live, tell, serve, give, right? Like, so I'm like, I want to investigate their life and go, man, do they really live a life that models the life of Christ? Are they telling people? And I know that's kind of like vanilla, but also, like, I had several students. I mean, we've seen this in church. I preach in different churches every single week. You can have someone who's been in the church for 30 years and not one person is in the room because of them. They've faithfully been coming, you know? So I would argue that they're in the process of spiritual transformation and still have a way to go to be transformed. Yeah. Telling people is a part of spiritual transformation, right?
Yeah.
I would say praying, right? Obviously, we know that one. Living, serving, right? You have people that have come and received the ministry of the church and they have no desire to serve. I mean, Jesus said, I didn't come to be served, I came to serve, right? So there's still transformation that needs to take place there. Yeah. I mean, so it's a little bit of factory, but more artistry, paying attention, I would say, to how students are talking about their relationship with God, not just showing up. Because there was a season in my ministry where I was like, they're here, we're good, we got them, you know, like, it's all right.
Yeah.
But then you start, you know, I don't know, nobody told me this as a youth pastor, that like they wouldn't just come back and all serve. I'm like, you guys are all going to stay and serve our ministry, right? And be a part of the teams. And then I realized we didn't want them to do that. We actually want you to grow and be a part of our church and all the things. But man, like, I have to investigate if they're actually transforming. And I got to do that with a little bit of both artistry and factory.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, I think markers like fruit of the Spirit. Are you seeing the fruits of the Spirit growing? You know,
that's biblical. Yeah. That right? What Aaron said.
Yeah. No, I loved everything you said. That's just where my head went. It's like, okay, you know, like Paul gave us markers, and okay, am I seeing those happen? You know, I mean, the other marker Paul gave us is Romans 12:2. Will you be transformed by the renewing of your mind? Yeah. So yes. I think that what we're talking about here is talking about sanctification. Theologically, that's what this conversation is about. Spiritual transformation, sanctification, the lifelong process of becoming more like Christ, right? Okay. So I think Paul says, what he's saying in Romans 12:2 is that the primary focus or object of sanctification related to the work of the Holy Spirit in your life and my life is the transformation of my mind, the renewing of my mind. He has to change the way that I think. So if I can see that students, if I can see students are starting to think differently, spiritual transformation is taking place. Might be slow,
powerful,
right? Yeah. But it's taking place. That's so important. You go back to your story, Peter, of the student who called you to say, "Hey, I'm walking away from Christ." You know, if like the body only behaves in a way that the mind allows. Yeah. So if you're not transformed in your thinking, you can never really be a fully devoted follower of Christ. Yeah. Right? You could have had a salvation experience, right? But if your mind is never transformed, then you've not started the process of sanctification or spiritual transformation. Right? Yeah, like there has to be a transformation of your thinking. Otherwise, you're what Paul calls a carnally minded Christian. Yeah. Right? You have certain behaviors where you try to act like a Christian, but you don't think like a Christian. And if you don't think like a Christian, ultimately you never get to a place of spiritual transformation. Yeah. Now, how 100%. You measure all that, Caleb, or that's part of the challenge that we all face in youth ministry. Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah. Let me ask both of you this: what is your favorite thought that a student shared with you that you're like, oh, they're spiritually transformed? You ever have one of those moments? Can you think of one? Okay, while you guys are thinking about it, let me share mine.
Yeah. Okay, good. Give us some time.
I had a kid one time. I was like, man, I don't know if any of this is clicking for this guy. You know what I mean? Because he would just come in and give me that blank stare that students give you. They're just like, I mean, every service, like he's in worship, looking at the worship team, like, and I was like, but he was coming for like months and years. I'm like, I don't know if any of this is computing. And one time we're in a small group. This is why I'm such a big fan of small groups, because you actually get to hear students communicate what's happening in here. Mm-hmm. And he literally goes, you know that scripture verse that says a righteous man falls down 7 times and gets back up? He goes, I've had a revelation. He goes, it's not our righteousness. That's why we can get back up. And I'm like, oh, he's being spiritually transformed. Like he's like, no, it's the righteousness of Jesus that enables. When the Bible calls me righteous, it's not my righteousness, it's his. And he goes, I don't know what that is. I go, that is the work of Christ in your life. And the other kids were like, so I still don't get it. And I'm like, this kid gets it. Like it is Jesus doing all the heavy lifting. And so that's why I think it's so important for articulation, creating a place for articulation in youth ministry, because then you don't know if you don't have those moments.
Yeah.
You know, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's like one of those sometimes rare moments in youth ministry where you're like, they're getting it.
Yeah.
Like, I am a good youth pastor. I do preach about Jesus.
Yes, that's way better than finding out student leaders are vaping in the
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. I'm too old, man. I can't think of. Okay,
I got one.
Go ahead.
I had a middle school boy who was a part of like a Bible club in his school, and he was like, I got this atheist to show up, and we're talking with him, and I can't remember the exact details, but I remember like the one line he said is the guy is like, okay, what do I have to do to earn this? He's like, well, it's not really about that. It's not about what you do. It's just about how good God is. And he said that to me, and I was like, bro, you're gonna make me cry. Like, that was awesome. I was like, I'm saved again.
That's good.
And it was just like hearing him talk about how he talked to people who don't believe. I was like, oh my gosh, dude, you're nailing it. And it like, yeah, it was saying it in his own way too, where I wasn't like, I didn't just preach that. Because I've heard kids like share what I just shared on the stage. And it's like, oh, okay, they're just repeating, which is also awesome. Like, I love that they're like catching that. But when I heard him saying it, and it was like in his own way, and then he's talking about his story and what God has done for him. That's
awesome.
I'm like, dude, you're in 8th grade? Like, I sometimes ask 8th graders, like, what's your story? And they're like, I don't know. I just showed up because my parents made me come here.
Yeah, right.
So, like, seeing you say that, it's like, oh, my goodness. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Well, and that's like what Peter just said. Like, for them to articulate or verbalize, here's what's happening, which is part of the value of small groups. And I know most youth ministries are doing some form of small groups now because it's a great place to find markers or like fruit, like what's happening in the life of a student. Yeah. It sounds like you're getting ready to jump in.
Well, the more I'm processing the idea of like investigating, asking the right questions, diving past just like, I think as a youth pastor, I usually think like, what's in my control and what do I need to do? And when a student isn't responding, it's like, I'm doing something wrong. But actually, usually it's probably just like, what's going on in their heart? Because it might not just be like a one-to-one. Usually there's something happening. And so I think for the past year, I've been processing this idea because I have a group of students who are so faithful and they're there every week. But the spiritual transformation side is something I'm still waiting on. And so I've been evaluating a lot like, God, is there something I'm missing or something I'm not doing? And I think that's the natural way my brain works is like, there's something wrong with me. And not just like, maybe God is actually working and I'm not even fully aware of what he's doing. And so I think challenge for me is like, I'm like, I want to go talk to some of these students that I'm like, what's going on? And, obviously not in an interrogation way, but like, like just getting to the heart.
What's going on?
yeah.
But you know what though? I feel like it brings God great joy for us to set out our markers, but then even set markers between the markers that allow us to know the work has begun. Yeah. Because I've had students where I'm like, man, they're not getting it. And then they invite a friend to come to church with them. And I'm like, oh, something has started.
Absolutely.
So that's really important. Or just even a kid being like, hey man, like I mean, this was it for me too. Kids would be like, normally have their phone, but they're like, I brought my paper Bible that you guys gave me when I first came, and I've been highlighting it. And I'm like, something's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And celebrating those moments is huge. I think I tend to be more like, they're not fully there yet. Like, I want to see everything.
Yeah, we all do.
It's like, it's like celebrating, as Pastor Joseph Kellogg, who was my intern director, would say, celebrating the first downs, baby. Like, you gotta celebrate those things. So I think I tend to miss that and maybe even miss those markers and feel discouraged when it's actually like God is doing stuff and I need to trust the process. I need to die to myself in terms of the results I'm hoping to see and the fruit that help, make me feel like I'm doing a good job. Yeah. When it's really not about that to begin with.
I think everyone in ministry, we want to see progress, right? Yeah. We want to see spiritual transformation take place. Like if you have no desire to see that, then why are you in ministry in the first place? I'm not just talking youth ministry. I'm just talking even general.
Yeah. Like it's just a weird balance, right? Yeah. Between like what I take on as myself.
And we talk about this a lot, in all of the vitals for youth ministry, all the resources. We talk about lead measures and lag measures, and we talk about how, you have to focus on the things you can control, right? Those are the lead measures. A lot of spiritual transformation is a lag. Mm-hmm. It's a lag measure. You don't always see it. So what can I control? Okay, I can, Peter, you've mentioned, like, I can put you in small groups and give you opportunities to verbalize your faith and articulate it. All right, I can control that I create a system of small groups. I can't control whether or not you decide to dive in, and do that. Yeah. I can, and I think like with all the vitals, there's this relationship between all of them, right? And so spiritual transformation and biblical truth, I mean, there's a tight relationship between those two vitals, because we've identified that a lot of spiritual transformation is the renewing of one's mind, transforming of one's mind. That doesn't happen without biblical truth.
Yeah.
Okay, so as a youth pastor, I can control, am I teaching and preaching in a way where I'm trying to introduce students to the Word of God, thus allowing the Word of God to at times confront the way someone thinks, right? So like, Peter, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, because you're a gifted communicator. God's using you, all across the nation to travel and to speak, to, thousands of students, people, all that kind of stuff. What are some ways that you've seen God more recently using like the preaching and teaching of his word to bring about spiritual transformation in your ministry?
Yeah. I've really not shifted, but just really made an emphasis on making decisions after a message. I'm not just talking about the decision for Christ. It's like asking questions at the end of my message. It's not like the most hype way to end, but giving students a chance to go to process, like right there at the altar. And I've seen, people say, because I heard this is what I'm going to do, right? Like really encouraging them to like making an emphasis on action. There should be something that you are doing. I mean, sometimes you'll hear a message and we just need to sit on it and reflect and meditate. But like I found with this generation, man, there needs to be a sense of action that leads to, and that's proof positive of spiritual transformation. It's kind of like the woman at the well thing. You know what I mean? Like she has this encounter with Jesus, and then immediately she goes back to Decapolis, the 10 cities that she knew people in, and she starts sharing. There's action after encounter. So the way I've seen that happen is like students leaving services and going, I'm gonna begin to anoint my house with oil. Students leaving service and going, I have prayers I just wrote down over my mom and dad, my brother and my sister. I have a friend. I wrote up a text I'm gonna send as soon as service is over. I'm recording my testimony. I'm posting it live. It's happening tomorrow. Just decisions after encounter, action after encounter. So I
love that phrase, action after encounter.
Yeah, and that's something that's. We're not talking about crazy things to implement. It's like, or even like having to be this certain thing. It's just like, hey, encouraging students to take a real step. I think I agree with that with you. I think it's a huge step for a generation that I think really struggles with commitment and struggles with a fear of doing the wrong thing. So giving an easy action of like, here we go, let's take this step, like leading them in those small steps. I don't know if that's me. I've only ministered to Gen Z, so I have no idea if that's now or that's always how it's been. But I can feel like, especially for now, like that is absolutely huge for what they need and how they step into things.
I mean, we could ask ourselves the question, is there really transformation if there's not application? Yeah. Right.
That's great. Yes.
Right. So that's what 100%. You're saying. Like if I have an encounter, then the encounter should be followed by some form of action. Right. Yeah. But as a youth pastor, that's one of the ways I think we can, like, is there markers or is there fruit of this happening? Like, is there application, or is it just experience? Right. And I think it's easy to fall into the experience trap. And that's what the attractional ministry model taught all of us in youth ministry. Create a great experience, right? And if you create a great experience, then eventually spiritual transformation will take place. And now we're looking at data that says, no, that's not necessarily true, right? Yeah. Right. So you can still create a great experience. I'm all for that, actually. But at some point, the transformation is going to be seen by the application of it in the lives of my students.
Yeah. It has to, yeah. It has to. And you know what I love about that story too, especially the woman at the well, is that Jesus went, scholars argue about the distance, but he went out of the way to talk to one woman at one well. So what we're talking about as far as investigating students' lives is like he thought miles, however long it was worth to talk to one woman. And so we could get discouraged when we go, man, I'm only able really to have that conversation once a week with a student. It's like, well, that's worth it. Jesus thought it was worth it. Yeah. To investigate where their life really is and what's really going on.
And I think that's encouraging for youth pastors or youth leaders that are watching or listening, and they're like, man, I'm in a small setting. I got like 5 kids. I got like 10 kids in my small church. I'm just volunteering out here trying to make a difference, right? And Jesus models that for us. So Peter, as we're kind of wrapping up here, but I just get real practical with us. Any just kind of like put your coaching hat on for a second. Some youth pastors listening that are just like, okay, how do I practically flesh this out? We talked about application. How do I apply this conversation to my week in, week out youth ministry? Any thoughts in regards to that for them, steps they can take?
Yes. I mean, this is going to be annoyingly simple. number one, give out Bibles that you have already highlighted. One of my practices as a youth pastor would be on I don't know why the camera keeps doing that. one of my practices as a youth pastor would be to go get a Bible. I'm not talking about my personal Bible. I'm just talking about a Bible that we would give out to students. I would highlight it on Monday and I would hand it to a student on Wednesday and say, hey, I've highlighted a bunch of different things in here for you. Go find them. You know what I mean? And I would give that to them. So I would say give out Bibles. Number two, the most successful resource I've ever seen it in our youth ministry context. And as I've traveled, I've handed it to thousands of youth pastors, is we had a prayer guide. If you teach students how to pray, and like literally, like even the best prayer resource I have in my life right now is a prayer book by Jeff Leake. Like I go through it every single month, multiple times a month. Teach people how to pray, you will enhance their life with God like never before. Their spiritual life will begin to grow. Spiritual transformation will be inevitable if they pray. So prayer guide, hand out Bibles, encourage and really focus on teaching students how to share their faith. Man, that one is like, we naturally, instinctively hope that students are going to catch that. They won't. It has to be practical. So whatever you can do, whether that's a workshop, whether that's a class, like I know youth pastors that say they struggle to get kids from their youth service to their Sunday morning. Well, Sunday morning, have a donut, whatever, and invite them. Say, we're going to learn how to share our faith, like strategically focusing on that. And then the last one I would say this is whatever you can do to get students to go public with their belief in God, like figure that out, right? So whether it's a t-shirt, whether it's, man, my favorite thing is when kids would get baptized, you know, I tended to track that number more than anything else. Not that salvation's not important. It obviously is. But baptism was like them going, no, this is for real. I want everyone to know. And I'm dripping with the water of like the commitment that I made. Yeah. Everyone could see it. There's no denying it. But I also loved it because I would really challenge them to be like, who's coming to see you get baptized? And those are where the majority of our salvations came from, is when people would get baptized, they would get a little bit of that bonus. And so anyway, creating those moments for students to be public. So I don't care if it's baptism, I don't care if it's a t-shirt, I don't care if you tell them to record their testimony and post it and you collaborate on it with them, whatever it is, getting students to share their faith. I would say those four things will lead to dramatic spiritual transformation. It's kind of annoying to hear that though, because you're like, bro, that's so simple. Those are not groundbreaking ideas. I know, but they work.
Right.
Yeah. Right. They work.
Right. Yeah.
I still have my Bible that my youth pastor highlighted in and gave it to me. And I'm like, I still have it to this day.
Yeah.
You know, so.
As a youth pastor, you need to remind yourself pretty regularly, like that is how it is. Like we try to build and create these elaborate things, but it really is those simple practices that really do bear the most fruit, and especially over a long period of faithfulness.
The gospel does the work.
Yeah.
And it's easy for us to forget that.
Yeah.
Right, it really is.
But I love to build things.
I know, but isn't this what Paul said? Paul said, I didn't come to you with persuasive speech and eloquent, talks. I came to you knowing nothing but Christ crucified and a demonstration of power. There is a simplicity to the gospel that there are times when I did this for years as a youth pastor, regrettably. There are times we think it's about us. It's about my ability, my intellect, my talent as a communicator or as a musician or whatever your thing is, my ability to, in today's youth ministry world, my ability to have a social following and make something go viral, all of that stuff. And I'm not down on any of that. I think you should be excellent and, use your gifts. Absolutely. But the gospel does what only the gospel can do.
Yeah, that's right.
And so coming back to Christ crucified, that's the starting place for any kind of spiritual transformation that has to happen, right? So we forget about that. So, Peter, this has been fascinating. Great conversation. I love it. And just thanks for pouring into us, into those that are watching, and you're watching on YouTube, you're watching, listening on a podcast platform. Coda's up. That means he's like, I think they're getting ready to end. So
he does know every
he does.
time.
He can tell. He spent way too many hours listening to my voice, and he's like, I think they're getting ready to be done, and maybe I'll get to go outside. So. Hey, Peter, before we roll, how can people find you, your website, your ministry? I know you have some incredible resources, a lot of great, small ebook style stuff that you've written that could be a great benefit to youth pastors. Highlight some of that stuff. Where can they find it at?
Yeah, pull up to peter-reeves.com or the-reeves.com. And man, you'll get to see some of the awesome resources that are on there, as well as some of my wife's resources, our new merch that's out, a bunch of that stuff. And then we're on all the social platforms, just Peter A. My middle name is Amos as the prophet, and then Reeves, Peter A. Reeves. And so, yeah, man, we're on all of them. We are really good at engaging with people and keeping up with everyone. So, yeah, find us on there.
Yeah. Hey, also, I know that you and your wife, Joanna, have an incredible heart for helping foster kids, and you have an initiative called the Reeves Initiative. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Man, the Reeves Initiative exists to empower foster students and foster families. Our goal is to help more people in churches open up their home for foster care, and then to assist and support foster students, especially the ones that are called into ministry. And so we have partnered with great churches all across the country to help provide for families and for students in a variety of different ways. We've done everything from helping with lawyer and court fees for students to be able to enter homes, all the way to helping a foster student, redesign her dorm room, all the way to getting new Bibles and equipment, fridges, beds, dressers, cars, everything in between.
Yeah.
We believe, and we just believe that the scriptures are not playing when they said, let's take care of orphans and widows. And so we really believe in that. We've also, over the past couple of years, sent over 100 kids, foster kids, to camps and different mission trips across the country. And so we're really excited about what we're doing, man. And that's our heart.
It's amazing. Yeah. Amazing. I love it. Every time I hear you talk about it, I'm like, let's go. It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. So, man, this has been great conversation, Peter. Again, thanks for joining us. Pal. And so glad you're rolling with us. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't subscribed yet to Vitals for Youth Ministry, click on that subscribe button.
Ring the bell.
We want to see you there. Yeah, ring the bell. And then if you're listening on a podcast platform, give us a review, give us a shout out, and we'll hit you back. And we're excited that you're part of the Lead the Generation family. Big announcement, Caleb. Big announcement. It's not even on our website yet. Oh. You won't find it anywhere on Lead the Generation stuff, but we're bringing back Lead the Generation Conference in 2026.
Let's go.
And Peter Reeves is going to be there on main stage. It's going to be great. April 25th. Mark the date now before there's even a drop on the website or on social. But it's going to be great. It's going to be in Reading, Pennsylvania, and it's going to be an incredible day to resource and equip your entire youth ministry team. Youth pastors, youth leaders, student leaders, the whole bit. So it's going to be incredible. I'm excited to see you there, Peter. That's going to be great. So thank you all. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Caleb. Thanks for being part of the Lead the Gen family. Thanks for being a listener for Vitals for Youth Ministry podcast. We'll see you on the next one.